Cumhur, are you here? Okay, cool. So I will introduce you, and then I will plug you in. And whenever I plug you in, you're not going to be able to hear us anymore. Okay? Cool. All right. Welcome back. So this is the last presentation for today. And we have Cumhur Erkut from Aalborg University, and he's going to give his presentation remotely. This is the last presentation for today, so we'll be done at 5. Again, after this, you probably want to start to make your way back to the Opera House. Okay, so I will plug Cumhur in.
Yeah, a total silence. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Roman, for the introduction. So since this presentation is between you and the concert, I'll try to keep it plain, simple, a little bit historical outside of the information-rich presentations, more like a historical background overview of why we think differentiable DSP can enhance sound, music, and movement computing. I'm working at Aalborg University Copenhagen and Multisensory Experience Lab. And in 2020, Google's Magenta team introduced the DSP framework, differentiable DSP framework, that can get monophonic sounds and make a basically spectral-based analysis to get the fundamental frequency and loudness. It also has a latent Z output, signal output, which is not used in the original model, but has been facilitated for other things, which we'll talk a bit later on. And then finally, we get the harmonic part of the audio, some noise component that we can filter, a reverberation signal that we can calculate by convolution reverb in the frequency domain. And it steered the community in a very positive direction. It has currently 164 citations and gets lots of people very excited about the possibilities. So we at the Aalborg University immediately started to deploy some models and some extensions, starting with looking at the IAR filter, applying that to vocal sounds, real-time implementations, and again, sing-in voice and some FM-based synthesis algorithms. But since you probably know us, our main challenge is the modeling modular physical models. That is what we really like to do with the DDSP related models. So one example of the first year research is Juan Alonso's thesis, still unpublished, using DDSP for estimating FM synthesis parameters of the several plugins and also real recorded instruments. And as you see, the parameters were really smoothly without too much hiccups and jumps. So that is what is making us excited about the possibilities, even nonlinear models like FM, frequency modulation, or wave shaping. We didn't do that, but other people implemented real-time wave shaping, can be analyzed and resynthesized and run even nowadays in real time by the DSP. So currently there is much more research, and we're again working on real time and transferring to reverberators. You're going to hear about one of them, Søren's talk tomorrow at the conference, and there are much more to come, and also on movement. Today, I'm not going to focus too much on movement, but there will be other implications. So the question is, like, why are we so much interested in that, and how we can utilize these models to production in such a short time? In 2 years, we really tried to get lots of output. I think the answer to them is we prepared for this maybe for 20 years. That's why. That is what is happening. And that is also what's happening in the general machine learning part in audio. Otherwise, at Multisensory Experience Lab, we are interested in virtual reality, multisensory interaction, where sound is prominent modality, physical models. But I think we are, based on the previous research and simulation approach, we are bringing all this knowledge to attacking new problems using new tools as well. So that is the core takeaway or the idea of the talk, that there's a continuity in this, and this continuity is usually not reflected in contemporary conference talks because the focus is so much into the real application. To make my point, I'm going to go 20 years ago, or some 22 actually, where we looked at lots of different physical models from the signal point of view. We had blocks, and we could connect these blocks to estimate and synthesize wide variety of sounds in real time in conjunction with different modalities too. So in that, while we were doing this, we were also looking at different approaches of physical modeling, like the model synthesis, which gives us the vocabulary of modular interaction, finite differences, wave digital filters, and today in the SMC conference, you already heard how to make wave digitals differentiable too, or digital waveguides. They're all our module repertoire. And the difference between the upper part and the lower part, in the lower part, there's bidirectional interactions. And once you have the bidirectional interactions, you can also schedule everything. Then in the forward pass, you're approximating whatever physical variable there is. But in the back part, you'll normally calculate the scattering coefficients or intermediate memory calculations, but you can as well do backwards differentiation, and that lots of algorithms becomes very useful for running auto differentiation and estimating model parameters also in the second loop. That is why that we are interested in DDSP-based models, and we do that for many years. When I said that, it almost feels for the newcomers to the field as a bad thing or an insult that has been done before. We did all this before, but my intention is not this. My intention is there are new challenges, there are new problems, and this knowledge, which is usually getting lost. I couldn't find any good modeling examples that I can play. The Internet Archive gives them, but most of these model outputs are lost now. The idea is to highlight this kind of thing. So this is a paper coming from 2000. And in the 2000 paper, in the core calibrator part, we're applying spectral processing for parameter estimation of block string models. And until the last blocks, that everything you can do with what we did with gigabytes of recording data and days of simulatings and optimization routines, almost in real time using DDSP nowadays. So all the blocks are really intact. And when we were making optimizations, we were looking at several matches on the temporal envelope. DDSP even gives us much more flexible cost functions, multispectral loss in the original formulation, to calculate everything again very, very fast using the frameworks. One bad thing about formulating this kind of optimization is lots of people thought we were having generative processes, and some mysterious way the parameters just came out as to provide good sounding models. But in fact, there was lots of, again, backdrop research about the statistical nature, the information content, and the information dimension, Wapnick VC dimensions, which is called. And with shallow models, we could we could have a grip of that. Nowadays, we lost this a bit with the deep learning. That is almost that mystical entry, but there's also good research about understanding what's happening. So several examples about 2000s to have this bidirectional interaction and applying everything in the virtuality, which can be superseded with much more research. So here is Sylvin's research, how he does the virtual reality instruments, working with, again, multidimensional, multisensory input and sophisticated physical models running in real time. Well, probably you heard there won't be any sound as well, but these things are becoming more and more easier to make. And the second example was from the movement computing, that we can almost use the learning model there. But I'm going to skip them and come to the core of what I want to say. And after that, hopefully we will discuss. So this is the core point of the presentation. This is all what I want to say, except several messages that will come later on. So the thing is, when this research and this history was going on, we had different conditions and different reasons to deal with the data. Usually at Aalborg University, we're teaching the machine learning with looking specifically to the data model and the code. And here, the previous research was fundamentally different in all these aspects. So just to give you an overview, we were working shallow neural networks on the right-hand side. I hope you see my cursor. I'm not so sure about that, but it's on the right-hand side. Nowadays, we have a model zoo, lots of different models that we can learn and optimize, and front frameworks giving this as well. But what we particularly like in the DSP is that it's model agnostic, and we can use the same DSP structures like filters, like the convolution reverb, that we know how they work and they've been tested. Domain specific knowledge is there. The DSP is neural network agnostic, so we can use any neural networks in that, and it gives us a very good DSP structure that we can look further. And then we were using also 20 years ago some expressive notation language to drive the models. And right now in the conference, there are some papers about how the symbolic interpretation can drive neural networks for repeatable, accurate control. And that's been also a highlight in the DSP related research with control synthesis, or more recently MIDI-DSP, which is looking at the expressive information from the scores or symbolic information. But of course, nowadays also real-time implementation is real-time control is feasible. Then we were writing everything from scratch. Even MATLAB didn't have toolboxes that we can use. No, the first neural network toolbox came later after the research, but nowadays we have TensorFlow and PyTorch and all these frameworks that we can accurately implement automatic differentiation, backpropagation. One property of the model that we realized early on is we like original real-time recorded data. We had just MUMS, McGill University sample things which came out several DVDs, and we could rely on this, or we needed to go and record our own material in anechoic chamber. Nowadays, everything is much better. We have versioned data. NSTINT is very popular among the DSP researchers. They're annotated, and we can just download them from wherever we like, and it's updated and that's further processed. It's a great deal of information and possibilities. And also there are different databases, and we can even scrap YouTube for providing new data, especially singing and speech data is also in our research coming from this. So data resources and data preservation really changed. But what didn't change from our point of view from since then is how we look at the data, not only for future extraction, but partly as a model as well. So in our first research, even before 2020, in 90s, we found out that these spectral frames can be turned to a probabilistic model by themselves. So you can make a hidden model how the spectral frames are changing in time, and your model and analysis tools is one thing. So you don't have to run a separate model, and we even tried with physical models. Nowadays, it's much easier with, again, different models. A convolutional neural network is a giant FIR filter. A recurrent neural network is a giant IAR filter. And all these models can be pretty much parameterized and run with the existing structure. So these are the differences, relationships, but there are striking similarities about the importance of the synthetic data, about the model data convergence, and about domain-specific knowledge, keeping the DSP we like and know and can analyze intact in the framework. So based on this, where do we go from here? So that brought us interesting results, still giving interesting opportunities to combine the ultimate goal of virtual reality, real-time model parameter inference, everything together. Here we have to look a bit what's happening in the machine learning world. I'm sure lots of people interested in machine learning heard the notion of machine learning operations, MLOps for short. So when you look at the triangle of data models and code, actually there's a periphery about that everything should be tested, automated, be made reproducible, and strong focus on the deployment and monitored against drifts and version controlled. Now, if we can produce everything fast, this is because we are implementing this kind of ideas, MLOps ideas, more and more in our tools. We learned the lessons very, very well. What happens if we didn't do? For example, DDSP was updated once between versions 1.3 or something. Anyway, specific information is not good, but the changes were irreversible. So our models, which were working very nice, started to not work anymore. And all the databases were obsolete because we couldn't extract anything from them as well. So we learned these lessons that we integrate everything with continuous integration and focus on deployment. This year has been a peak year of the real-time deployment. The DSP Magenta team released a plugin version of the DDSP themselves, and we have several other implementations. So this deployment focus is very, very healthy for the research, but eventually we have to inherit and emphasize all the other aspects too. How it can be done, typical MLOps, applied to sound and music computing. So we are staying at the moment in sound and music computing with individual machine learning scientists, data scientists. Our tools of the trade are the Jupyter notebooks that we can simulate, or static web pages. But what I expect to happen will be the full chain of integration, getting the continuous integration and all the MLOps applications converging with the thing. With that, I can, of course, not claim to predict the future or say that it's the only way to proceed. Everybody should stop what they're doing and integrate MLOps ideas to their research. I cannot say that, but I can quote one of my favorite writers, Cumhur Erkut, about looking at the future, which who really recommends to be patient, and the future will come to you if you go on with the dedicated principles, try and tested principles of machine learning operations in my context, and with whatever how you deploy or make your models too. Here I stop. So I hope that was a bit of lightweight and stimulating talks. Now I'm also exactly at 20 minutes after I started. That's good. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have or general hear your opinions.
No? Well, Cumhur, apparently no one has questions. So
Okay,
I think you answered all the questions. So
that's good.
cool.
Do watch Soren's presentation yesterday to see how this kind of things applied in the actual production. He really made a nice continuous integration framework to deploy VST models. He's going to talk about that. So it will be, oh, there's a big crowd in the other part. So waving, that's great to see you. Enjoy the concert, enjoy the conference, and hope to see you next year.
Thank you, Cumhur. Okay, have a good night. Yeah, bye-bye. Where are you guys? I think that's like the other conference room, you know, like that's Anyway, well, thank you guys. So we'll see each other at 6:30 at the Opera House. Once again, it's a long walk, so it's probably going to take some time. So you probably want to leave now. You know, you can slowly make your way to the Opera House. So we'll see you there at 6:30. Thank you. So just for those of you who are wondering about this, and for those of you who are watching us online, the concert tonight is not going to be streamed. And there is a reason for that, and it's because it has intellectual property on it. So unfortunately, we're not allowed to stream freely tonight's concert. So there is no stream for tonight's concert. The concert will be filmed and archived, but we're not allowed to stream it. Good question.